When we think of how to explain God to our children and how that might look in an everyday way, I think there are a number of simple things that come to my mind, and I do try to keep it simple because family can be pretty complicated. One of the things that I try to remind myself of is that when it comes to bringing truth to bear in our home, God has been so kind to give us this precious gift of living with each other in a close environment where we really know each other 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for all these years. And that means that the Christians in a home have an opportunity to be a living billboard of the realities of God to everyone around them. So even though we're very imperfect, and our family of course know us best, through our imperfect yearnings for God Himself, through our stumbling efforts to apply the things that we're searching after, trying to get the highest and clearest views of God from Scripture, God uses all of that to bring the truths in front of the eyes of the people that we love. Of course, there's teaching. So if you think about being a parent and a child, especially if you homeschool, but it's not just for homeschoolers. I remember with our children in homeschool situation, my wife in particular being able to teach them. There's family worship. There's ways of just talking about the realities of God throughout the week. We can point them to the memorization of Scriptures, but not just Scriptures as a whole, but particularly those passages where God unveils Himself in such a striking way. We can point them to great hymns and explain to them why is it we would sing these old songs. Well, it's because they give very honest views of the Christian life, but they also give very high and clear views of our God. But more than all of that, we have our lives, where we're able to, living with each other, we're able to help our children in the daily circumstances of life to know how do you apply the realities of the God that we talk about to this present situation. So, for example, when dealing with children, even in their disobedience, we might be tempted to take what I would call a moralistic approach. And so we say, this is wrong, and we don't do wrong things here. We're not the kind of people that do that. I remember one father saying to his child, to his boys who were in a tussle, and they were probably 10 and 12-year-olds. And he said, have you no self-control? Little babies don't have self-control. That's why we put diapers on them. Do you want to act like a baby? And of course, the pride of the boys rose up and they quit fighting. But I think it would be so much better for us to, as we deal with the problems or the happinesses of life together, throughout those everyday circumstances, to be able to point our children, to be able to point ourselves to the realities of God. And that really is one of the keys. If I don't know how to direct my own heart to the all-sufficiency of an infinite and incomprehensibly great, astonishingly good God, then how will I know how to talk to the kids about Him? Then all we end up having is kind of a knowledge by hearsay. My dad said this, or Dad says he read a book that says this. While we point them to Scripture, to great hymns, to examples of Christians in the past, it ought to come through the filter of our own experience. And to the point that really we're what Paul says. God makes us to be an aroma of the knowledge of Him to everyone that meets us, whether it leads to life or to death.